after hours is like winning the lottery, right? So, and I wanna know during real time, I don't wanna get home at the end of the day and find out I have no hot water and I've got crying kids and I'm paying a guy overtime rates. So something like that, the leak detection really does appeal to homeowners, right? So, you know, I talked a bit about the business side. Here's the pretty side. You've got two choices, the black finish, the white finish. They both come with that stainless steel kind of trim on them. We find that the white finish tends to be a little more popular, but the black finish, if they've got that, you know, those dark kitchens that are in style with the stainless steel or media rooms or whatever, people use it like a bit of an accessory. You can change the face plate, the inside part, to, you know, one of 5 different colors. It's a very slim thermostat, so it looks quite high end. Now, and you can show as little or as much information on the face of it as you want to. So if you look over there right now, it's just showing us, you know, the time and the outdoor or the temperature. But you could have it show relative humidity, you could have it show outdoor temperature, all kinds of different things. So when you're looking at adding equipment, that's why I say this thermostat will cover like 99% of the applications you're gonna run across, right? You've got 2 stages of heat, 2 stages of cool, a system fan, and then you've got 2 accessory relays. So you could use them for humidification and dehumidification if you want. And this is one of the few thermostats I've come across that will do both dehumidification and humidification. It's got an onboard humidity sensor, which a lot of our competitors do not have. And then you can also choose to run a heat pump. If you're running a heat pump with this thermostat, you've actually got 4 stages of heating. So you could use electric strip for backup, depending on what your utility structure is here. Pricing varies, I know. And then you've got your 2 stages of heat pump, and then you still could do like a radiant floor as well. I don't know here in your region, do you see a lot of radiant floors, or what is the most kind of common heating type system you guys use?
Forced air by far.
Okay, forced air by far, which is good because the Envita can handle that, you know, hands down. You could have your gas, your electric strip, you could have your do you see a lot of heat pumps? Not so much?
Some areas.
Yeah, some areas,
Air
just
to air.
depends, yeah, but.
There was a ban on new gas homes back in the early 80s, so, you know, there were some heat pumps that got put in the area, which is kind of a stupid thing in Northeast Ohio.
Took mine out.
Right, okay. But yeah, this definitely, the forced air control, you've got, if you were using heat pumps, it has the ability to dual fuel, which means when the heat pump is no longer effective, then it switches automatically over to your backup heat source, right? And then, like I said, you have an accessory relay, you've got 2 of them, and you've got to pick, you've got the option for humidification, dehumidification, or an ERV, HRV. You got to pick 2 out of the 3, right?
Now, can a thermostat with an outdoor sensor be configured to do the switch over from the heat pump to the secondary source?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So what's in the box? It comes with what you see there. You've got the user interface, you've got the relay modules where you're going to do your wiring to, and then it comes with, I learned this in New Jersey, they call it a goof plate. I don't know what they call it here, just sort of the wall plate to cover up any kind of mess, right? And the wall plate's actually quite nice. It's very low profile, so even on mine, I didn't actually have to paint it out or anything. It just kind of, it fits in good. And then you've got your mounting hardware as well. So that's one piece. If you have to order it, you can't just order, you know, let's say I had somebody, they got hit their user interface with a hammer on the way, not a hammer, a ladder on the way by and cracked it. But you can't just order one piece. It comes in a box, right? But it's for that same price point. I don't know your distribution pricing, so Kim can kind of help you with that. But I just know the manufacturer suggested, right? And so we're definitely priced to be competitive in that existing Ecobee and Nest market. And you know, if you're going into an existing market, you have to bring a little extra, right? That's what the leak detection is about. That's what the onboard humidity is about, right?
Well, just the 2-wire thing itself is a huge advantage because a lot of the people that have the Nest have to buy the adapter kit, and half the time it doesn't work right.
Right. And well, and the other thing is, you're not getting extra stages with that.
No.
You're not getting, you can't add humidity or dehumidification. Is here dehumidification?
Not so much, no.
It's humidification.
Yeah.
If it's humid, you need air conditioning, and if it's not humid, you're running the furnace and you need humidification.
Okay, and then at home where I live, it gets nice. It does get cool, and it gets quite hot and dry in the day, but it gets cooler at nighttime, and so you can schedule the fan to just run at nighttime, and a lot of people like to do that just to try to take advantage of any free cooling, right?
Now, is that schedulable for like certain, every so many hours it comes on too, for like air cleaning
For
applications?
ventilation, you mean? Yeah, you can schedule it for ventilation, or just schedule it to run, like, I schedule mine to run from 11:30 to 5. So I just want to cool the heck out of my house.
Especially if you have an upstairs.
Yeah,
or
and I
something.
do, with two sweaty, grouchy teenagers in it. Anyways, welcome to my world. So as you can see here, you can have as much or as little on this faceplate, right? A lot of people, you know, they like to have all the bells and whistles showing. Some people just like to have, you know, the bare minimum temperature. One of the things I really like about this user interface is that we have, Tekmar being a water technologies company and an electronics manufacturer, now we manufacture for sister companies. This user interface we created for Watts Radiant for their SunStat Connect. So you may or may not be aware of them, but they probably have 15,000 of these thermostats of this type of interface out there, and then we probably have another 5,000 of them out there. And what that means to you is, like, well, what it means to me on tech support, I don't have people calling me up asking how to use their thermostat. The user interface is very simple, it's very intuitive. You can see they're using a lot of the symbols that we do with our cell phones, you know, the gear symbol or swiping across the extra screen. And so if they're not phoning me asking me how to use it, they're not gonna be asking you how to use it either, right? It's a really bulletproof interface. The screensaver can default, again, after a certain amount of time, you can just default to a very simple, sleek, clean screen. There's a certain demographic out there that told us they would like to have really big numbers. So we've got nice big numbers, it makes it easy to see, very clean. And changing the temperature, again, is very simple. You just walk up to it, it's your up or down arrow. If you want to, and I like this feature, if you just walk up to it and touch it, your first option is save until the next scheduled event, which is great for me because my kids are always walking over to the thermostat and they drive the temperature down so far I could hang meat in the living room when I get home, right? Like, it's so cold. But this turns over, and if I schedule it for 5 o'clock, then it switches back over to the regular at 5. You can also just with one button change it to save to schedule. So it makes it very easy to customize.
You know what I did to my son when he did that? My wife wasn't gonna be home that day, so I took the batteries out of the thermostat.
You know what I do now is I change the Wi-Fi password,
Oh, there you go.
and people lose their minds. Yeah, I thought they were gonna like start, you know, like a human rights violation claim against me.
Or you just turn the modem off when they get too much.
Is there a keypad lockout?
So there's an internal there is an internal password. It defaults to user. But yeah, if you poked around long enough, you could get through to where the password was and change it and install it.
Now,
Right?
could you put can you limit the set points?
Yes, you read my mind. You and I were like, we're good. I think I've only got one working brain cell, so I might be using more of yours right now.
Those things.
Yeah, no, totally. Or if you use it for public, right? My background being commercial building automation, I take something like this and I see a lot of potential not only for a retrofit application, but for some light commercial applications.
A lot of the
right?
customers want that. They don't want their employees touching
Right.
the thermostat.
And so you can limit it
we
high
put
and low.
boxes over them.
Yeah.
And they break the boxes.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about high and low is you have some control too.
Yeah.
You're not
You
just
can narrow that.
Locking things out is so important. I mean, that's the number one cell phone.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Keypad lock.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I look at this thing and I see not only just residential, but I mean, you can put this in multi-residential. You have a bank of townhouses, right? Because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. One furnace, one thermostat, right? But you could have, you know, for that price point, you can have 10 of them in there. And now if you're the property manager, you've got some basic energy management. You get some notifications about what's going on. You know, you can share it. So let's say it's a gas station, and I'm the gas station owner, but you guys are 4 gas stations near each my manager. I can have one app, one account. I invite you, and you can see your Envita in your store. You can see yours, right? So there's a lot of applications outside just the retrofit. So here I'm going to go through these a little quicker because I know I've only got a certain amount of your time today. But what they're just walking you through is is just the menu options, right? So again, you press the gear button, just like on your cell phone, that gets you into the menu settings. If you want to get into the fans, or if you want to get into the fan, then of course you touch the fan settings and it's right there.
What about the Tekmars for like the hydronics and boiler controls too?
Yes, Tekmar does do
Yeah.
those. This particular presentation is about the Envita and the 2-wire solution.
Okay.
And if we have time, I'll talk a little bit about the zone,
Okay,
zone
yeah.
boxes we have. But we do have, that's sort of our core competency, right? We built our name on snow melting and boiler controls. And I was saying to Kim, you know, depending on your guys' timing, if we needed to do a webinar, you know, I can call, you can have this set up here and I can be on the phone. And if we have a particular product that you're interested in, we can walk right through it in a very efficient manner. Yeah. And I do encourage, if there's anything you can just like let Kim know if there's anything in particular. And if I can't get to it today, we'll get you something another.
Are you tech support for the hydronic controls?
Yeah. Yeah, I manage the tech support department, and then lucky me, because it's tough to get enough people, I get to participate as well. Which is actually good, because it keeps me in touch with the challenges that my team faces and gives me direct access to voice of customer. So the things that, you know, a guy on the phone is struggling with, then I've got to feed right into R&D, into product management to say, look, we need to fix this, right? So yeah, as you can see, pretty easy, on, off, auto, or follow a schedule, and that's what I use to keep my house cool at night. If you want to go into the setup menu, then you can get into the installer menu settings. Now you need to go into the toolbox first and make sure that you change it to installer, and then you can go and look in those menus. If you're in the user mode, you go to those menus and stuff is grayed out. So people won't be frustrated thinking they can touch it and fix it and change it, right? So I'll just quickly run through here. So temp, that's where you would set that min and max temperature alerts, or you could set the min and max rails for where they can run it up to. You can decide if you want to use the temperature and humidity high and low alert notifications. If you're using humidity control, you can set those up here too. So you can see, you know, it's pretty easy at the one screen to configure it how you want. Relays, that's where if you've got whatever equipment you're trying to control, you go in there, and it's very English driven. Tekmar used to be kind of bad for using weird acronyms and only using this much of a word and making you kind of guess. The Envita doesn't do that, which I quite like. I'll go quite quickly through these, but what they're wanting to show you with these next group of slides is they're just trying to show you that you have a lot of options with this thermostat. I do get calls where people are fit to be tied because they want this to come on now, and this to come on now, and this to come on now. They want the staging exactly like they want it, right?
We want that too.
There you go. And I've spoken with
Very
a few
impatient
gentlemen like
in the
yourself
field.
who feel very passionately about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I get some colorful explanations. But what they're showing you here is that, you know, you can configure your different stages of operation. You can say it's got to be below this temperature for this much time, and you can do that on 4 stages worth, depending what your equipment is, right? If you're using it for, if you guys did more radiant here, I would dig into this. This is how they're showing you the radiant floors operate. And what they're basically just trying to say is that Tekmar's theory for operating radiant floors for comfort and for nice even heat is the lowest possible water temperature at long flow. Lots of flow, constant flow, lowest possible water, right? And when you do that, you get nice, even heat to the floors. You don't have thermal expansion, you don't have a lot of noise. And the way that they do that is an algorithm that they developed called pulse width modulation. Don't memorize that. Just know that it'll operate. So when you're at the bottom rail here, so let's say our set point in the middle, this thick black line is 70. And it operates on a 1.5 degree differential. So when you're 1.5 degrees below, it's going to be putting heat into the floor 100% of that time. When you're in the middle at set point, it's going to be actually running heat into the floors 50% of the time. And then when you're above set point, it's heat into the floor 0% of the time. So your takeaway from this little chunk of knowledge is that if you're using a Tekmar thermostat for a radiant floor, expect it to be, when you're at set point, operating 50% of the time. I get the troubleshooting call when people are like, this stupid thing is running my pump, why is it doing that? You know, my room's at set point. And I tell them, well, it's doing that to keep it at set point. Because if you get to set point and you stop putting heat into the floor, it craters on you, and then you've got to come back up, and you get those uncomfortable temperature swings. Given you guys don't do a lot of radiance, I'm not going to spend a lot of time digging in here. So what they're showing you here now is as you start to build up a different system, this is a conventional, so like a forced air furnace with a radiant floor. They're starting to show you the different staging options that you can set up within the control. Here they're adding now a heat pump with radiant, and the radiant floor will start first, and then the heat pump is going to take over as first and second stage. And
what if you have radiation, just a boiler, just
Radiator.
a fin tube?
Yep, you can configure it just for your fin tube. Yep.
Okay.
Really, like, I dare ya, phone me if you find something you can't control with it. I'll give it to you for free. Except for alligator farms, I'm not doing those. That was whack. I get some crazy calls, right? Because people like the look and they like the price point, and so they just start kind of trying to wrap their head around what else can I do with it, right? So the one interesting thing too is that the control knows that if it's using radiant with a heat pump, it stages your radiant first and then starts staging in the heat pump. But it also knows that if you're not using it, so let's say you've got a radiator and then you have a heat pump for some reason, it'll change the order so that whatever is the most energy efficient, it starts with that piece of equipment. Dual fuel, this is for heat pumps only, so this is your question, is below a certain temperature, will it switch over to the auxiliary heating? And the answer is yes. So basically, you can set that balance point to a temperature that's appropriate for your region, and then it'll run the heat pump until the temperature gets below that, and then it'll automatically switch over to your auxiliary or your supplemental heating. What's is electric? Do you guys have a lot of electric strip, like that kind of backup here? Is it cost effective?
It's a mixture, 50-50. Depends on where part of the city or the part of the region.
Yeah, and we do find that a lot when people are phoning us, right? Depending on, well, first off, if it's a rural property or if it's a remote cabin or whatever, then of course they don't have a natural gas per se, right? But it really depends where people are. In Quebec in particular, at home, well, in Canada, I don't live in Quebec, they're electric. They have a lot with the furnace and electric strip backup. That's huge there because their price point is so good, right? So it really does depend, but you can customize. And again, what they're showing you here is your cooling. So as the room temperature is rising, the thermostat's going to start staging on equipment, which is what a thermostat should do. The big key though is that the one thing that Envita does very well is recognize the type of equipment you have and stage it appropriately so that you're operating as energy efficiently as possible. So somebody asked me earlier about the fan. This is where you could schedule your fan. You can do then if you need to come on for ventilation. And I like the fact that they're saying, wake, leave, return, sleep. Like, this is language that people understand, right? I'm waking up, then I'm leaving my house for the day, now I'm returning for the evening, and now I'm asleep. And you can decide if you want to put the fan on in 15-minute increments kind of thing, right? Any questions so far? You guys are pretty good about piping up. Usually I have to, bribe people, So this is the humidification. So, like I said, this is one of the few thermostats that I've come across that can do humidification and dehumidification at the same time, and it has that built-in humidity sensor. It also does have the ability to have a remote temperature humidity sensor installed as well. It looks a little bit like a coffee creamer, and it'll install flush mount. We have one that's temperature only, and it looks like a coffee creamer too, and you can skim coat over it, because it's crazy. People don't want to even see their equipment anymore. They don't want to see a thermostat. You can't skim coat the humidification one though, because you have to have exposure to the air, right? I've gotten that call, and then he was madder than that. He's like, "Oh I put this fancy new thing in and it's not working." And when we get peeled down to it, he skim coated it and painted over it. It's like, you made yourself a button. So it'll also do. It has some basic information you can add for the type of window. So for frost protection. And then it can automatically adjust the humidification for that. Dehumidification, so your humidification and your dehumidification is like a plus or minus 3%, right? So it turns off when you're at the dehumidify to setting, not above kind of thing. And then, it'll as you drop to that setting. And I know at home we're seeing a lot more emphasis on humidification for comfort and in seniors assisted living places and that. I don't know is that a trend that you're seeing here?
Residential, we see a lot of humidification.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a godsend in Cleveland because forced air dries out the air.
Right. Yeah, the day I came home with my newborn, my second child, our humidity died. And man, I was never so happy. It didn't take that long at all, and you could feel it, like your nose hurt and everything was dry and the kids were coughing. I was so happy to see that guy when he came out to fix it. So I talked a little bit about the alert notifications, room hot and cold, low and high humidity, auxiliary heat runtime, which is kind of handy, right? Because if your auxiliary heat has kicked in and taken over and is running and running and running, why? Where's your primary heat? So you just get an alert that says, hey, this has been running for this many hours. And then there's, change the air filter, change the UV lamp. These are runtime counters, right? So they're just, you reset them, and which is good though if you're out doing maintenance and you know that you're the one that last time you were there, you can reset it, right? So the installation, again, it connects between the mechanical room and the living space on 2 wires. That's power and communication on 2 wires. Tekmar has a long history with power and communication on 2 wires. You asked me earlier, is it Sean?
Yes.
Yes. I'm so bad with names, so I got it right. You asked me a little bit earlier about some of our other controls, and we do have, it's almost like, do you guys use zone boxes here, relay boxes, pump boxes? Not so much?
Not so much.
A lot of Tekmar boiler.
Oh, okay, well that's good to know.
Yeah, reset controls.
Yeah, the outdoor reset.
Mhm.
If you use the communicating Tekmar product, you get something, because a lot of times now the boilers are coming with the outdoor reset controls in them, and they say, oh, you don't need a Tekmar control, right? We built it in. But if you use the communicating product, which is not much of a price point different from the non-communicating product, because electronics have, come way down, right? What you get is also indoor temperature feedback. So it's kind of like indoor reset control. So the outdoor reset control gives you a boiler supply temperature, right? And the thermostats, though, now because they're communicating to each other, what they do is they talk and they say, okay, Mr. Boiler Control, we know that your outdoor reset schedule says you should be supplying 143 degrees today. But we've all talked, and it's really sunny out. We got like 12 guys sitting in the room here, so it's kind of warm. And we've all talked, the living room actually is the one that needs the most heat, but he only needs 138. So you can drop your outdoor reset schedule down. And what that gives you, if you're using a ModCon boiler, it doesn't get high efficient until it's condensing. And it doesn't get condensing until below 140 degrees. So when you take the outdoor reset and you pair it with the indoor temperature feedback, now you're running that boiler at the lowest possible temperature without sacrificing comfort, right? It's kind of like automatically adjusting the outdoor reset schedule for you. And I know that when I go out and I do trade shows, I get some feedback because guys will leave the outdoor reset schedule a little high, right? Because you're not anybody's friend if you have to come back and turn that up a bit. They can always turn down their thermostat if they get a bit warm, but they're not going to pay you to come and change that. So now with indoor temperature feedback, you're actually responding to the actual needs in the space, right?
If I do that at the shrine, Sister Rochelle goes out and just turns the switches off on the boiler.
There you go. So this would save her the trip downstairs, right? Okay, so what we're looking at here again is the and sorry, what got me started on that is we have been using power and communication on 2 wires for 15 years. I mean, we know how to do this, right? So here what they're showing you is you've got the user interface, the touch screen Wi-Fi portion lives upstairs, right? The Wi-Fi is connecting to the router, which then connects up to the cloud, but it does it automatically. It's just like whenever, I don't know about you guys, but I get 10 teenagers in my house and suddenly boom, 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 they're all on the Wi-Fi, right? And that's exactly what the Envita will
I do have a question. What kind of wire? Can a 2-wire be just conventional thermostat wire, or
Yeah.
does it need to be shielded, or any
No.
specifics? Or,
18.2.
Okay, even an old antique cloth covered,
Yeah.
as long as it's intact and not shorted.
Yeah, the liability side of me says as long as it's completely intact and blah blah blah. But yeah, you don't need special wire for it, right? The only thing they recommend, and we'll see this in a second, is if you and it doesn't usually apply because the older wire is not usually stranded. But if you do happen to have stranded wire, they recommend that you just make a pigtail with non-stranded, because the terminals, and you can see it over there, the terminals are kind of close together, so on the back of the Envita. And so you don't want to have a little tiny piece of stranded come poke back up, and again, you can short it out, and that's your power and your communication, right? So yeah, you can connect between the mechanical room and the living space using 2 wires. Pretty easy. It'll mount to a standard 2x4 electrical box, right? You don't have to use the back plate, but you know, I had to because I had a sideways Honeywell thermostat. When you're connecting it, so this answers to your question here, you actually just push it into the wire connector. You can push it in, or you can just put, it's got a little lever, and then you can pull it back out again. But they do recognize that, you know, use the solid cord just because it's close. That's all. And the wiring is not polarity sensitive, which again, if you're looking at a commercial application, you can send out an apprentice and you can, you know, line them up to do a whole bunch of these for you, because there's not a lot that can go wrong, right?
Well, not to mention some of the older wire wasn't always red and white. You might have black and white, or
Yeah,
red
exactly.
and blue, or
Yeah, no, exactly. So this part now, that's the module. That's where all the wires attached to. This can mount to the wall, or at my house, I mounted it to the sheet metal plenum by my furnace, right? So it made it easy to just get access. So when you're looking at the module, this is where we're wiring to. You go 2 wires from the thermostat display, right? Because this gets 24 volts wired to it to power it, and then it sends the power and the communication up to the user interface. So starting down on the left-hand side, those are sort of where your inputs are, and on the right-hand side, yeah, my right. On the right-hand side is where your outputs are. So on the input side, you've got your thermostat display, then you've got 3 optional sensor inputs, and your leak detector down at the bottom there, right, which is a contact closure. And then on your output side, you've got 2 accessory relays in the upper right-hand corner. You've got your, and this is I had to explain this yesterday, but I'm pretty sure you guys, W1, W2, Y1, Y2, right? It's all your heat, your cool. So you've got your 2 sources of, you've got an RH1 in, and then because this is a thermostat designed to allow you to add extra equipment, you're likely adding from extra power sources, right? So to keep them isolated, you have an RH2, and then you've got the RC as well. RC switches to G to Y1 and Y2, RH2 switches to W2, and RH1 switches to W1. Now there's some little jumpers down here at the bottom. This cracks me up because the product manager gets to make the original stuff, and he really likes these little switches. They're little jumpers. So instead of having to actually wire a jumper, you can just pull them off and put them across the 2 terminals, right? And he really likes that, so that's why it gets the big red arrow. Now when I make the PowerPoint, I'm gonna put the big red arrow wherever I want to put it. But in the meantime, he's the boss of the big red arrow. So you can just see though, they've tried to make it really easy for installation. You got a lot of room to work with, right? You can pull the cover right off. They've got some strain relief wings, you know, so that if you have flush mounted it is designed to be flush mounted either to the wall or to the plenum because it's a retrofit application, right? But it's not a bad looking little unit, you know? And we've even had some folks who have an existing zone box and they want Wi-Fi and they want color and they want touchscreen, but their zone box doesn't have enough VA in the built-in transformer. They don't have enough power, right? So you can run one of these and have your module be above your existing zone box. And at that time, now it's just a thermostat output, right? You take your W1 and run it down to your zone box and you're doing the same thing again. But now your customer can have that color touchscreen Wi-Fi experience. Any questions?
yeah, that's running off the furnace transformer. Or do you recommend a separate transformer for it?
Well, it depends, right? I mean, if your furnace transformer has enough VA available to it, then you can use it.
So it
sure.
doesn't need a special filtered transformer.
No. And you've got choices too. Like if you're using all the same source of power, you don't have to use all the isolated relays in there. You can move the jumpers so that you wire R and it's internally switched to RH, RH2 and Y1, or sorry, your RC if you need. So you've got the option to have it be as simple electrically or as isolated electrically as you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the sensors all hardwired, or are they Wi-Fi?
No, the only thing that's Wi-Fi is the interface to the router out to the cloud. So we have a wireless.
Oh, so the only Wi-Fi is just talking to your phone?
Yes.
Oh, with the app. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. We do have a wireless outdoor sensor. So like I said, if you were somebody where that internet service doesn't really reflect your house's location, you know, then you can use the wireless outdoor sensor to this
And it
product.
has a battery in it, I assume.
Yeah, it's got a 10-year lithium battery on it. Yeah, it's a good chunk of time on that, right? So they're just showing you here some basic systems. Here's some your air conditioner and your furnace. You've got of course your modules down there with the equipment. The user interface is up in the house. I'll go through quickly on these because I recognize I'm at 47 minutes. What they're just showing you here is how easy the wiring can be, and that you've got a lot of different ways to have electrical isolation if you have different sources of 24 volts coming in. And here we're just showing the same. You've got a heat pump now, and you've got electric strip backup. This one is sort of the Quebec special where I'm from. Now, when you use the Envita to run heat pumps, you have to take one of your auxiliary relays and use it as your OB. So just be aware, that doesn't really apply in your market because heat pumps aren't as popular. So you would just have the one extra auxiliary relay to use, say, accessory relay to use, say, for humidification if you wanted. So, and again, we've talked about this is the balance point. So the heat pump would operate above that outdoor temperature, and as it got colder, it would automatically switch over. And they're just showing you again, as you build up the extra sources of 24 volts and extra pieces of equipment, you can electrically isolate them very easily. So here's where they're showing an ERV with a humidifier. So you use now both of your two auxiliary relays or accessory relays. And the system will automatically kick the fan down to low speed so that you can do dehumidification while your cooling is on, right? I'm sorry if I asked this already, but are ERVs and HRVs something that you're seeing a lot here?
Not so much.
No?
People still open windows here.
Okay. There are some states when I travel that they're being mandated, right? So there was a chunk of time where there was actually like a bylaw or whatever put in. But what was happening is people were putting them in and then they just weren't connecting.
Well, it's not to mention in Cleveland, there's still a lot of single pane windows left, so.
Right,
You
and
get
that
enough
is nice
noise.
because in the Envita you could customize it. So if you were doing humidification or dehumidification, you could at least tell it, the window grade is poor. It's not rocket science. It's like 1, 2, or 3. Bad, okay, good. But at least it's something, right? So this is the Watts Flood Safe Low Flow Water Detection Shutoff. And what comes in the box is this dam ring. It's kind of just a rubber, and then you've got your moisture sensor here, which is wired to the shutoff valve for your incoming water, and it's also wired to your source of heat. So, and whatever your source of heat is, whether it's gas or electric or whatever, it'll kill the source so you don't fry the tank if it's empty from a catastrophic leak. And then what happens is when this makes, it talks to the thermostat module, which then goes out to the user interface, and you get an email on your phone, and you can reset it as well. So let's say you have some sort of a weird, I don't know what happens, somebody spills water in the laundry room and trips it, you can manually reset it. Do you guys do a lot of this type of stuff? Leak detection, is that becoming something? No?
Not so much.
No, I know where I live, and I know when I travel a bit for stratas, you call them homeowners associations, right?
Right.
Homeowners associations, water damage and insurance claims are becoming a real issue, and so a lot of the strat homeowner associations are becoming really interested in this kind of thing, right? I know myself, I had a leak and it ended up a mouse chewed through the drain on my dishwasher. And ended up buckling all my hardwood floors on me, so that was fantastic. So here we are, we're just going over how do you connect to the Envita. So the water detection is down in the mechanical room, and when it's detected, it goes through the module and right up to the Envita, which then goes out to the cloud. So a little bit about the mobile app. You can get it either for Google Play or for iPhone. You just download it, terms and conditions, and then you sign up. There's a verification email to make sure that it's secure, because security is an issue nowadays. The Envita Connect can have 20 Envitas per location and unlimited locations. So let's say you're one of those poor folks that's got your country house and your ski lodge and your boat house and your downtown condo, and you've got 4 thermostats at each of those locations, right? The struggle is real. Some people out there, they don't have a way to keep track of all that stuff. But you know, the short story is, if you were using this for a multi-residential, like a apartment building, floor 1 could have 20 thermostats, floor 2 could have 20 thermostats, all the way up. There's no limit on the app. Pretty easy. When you're looking at the app, it's a very simple interface. What you're seeing there is if you had a list of thermostats on the left-hand side, you'd see them all listed out there. If you want to put your entire location and all those thermostats into away mode so that they stop operating at that higher temperature to save you some energy, you just touch one button, it goes through the cloud and talks to all the thermostats and puts them in setback. If you want to adjust the thermostat, you're just turning that little in. If you try to run the cool setting up over the heat setting, it bounces, so it means a 3-degree differential, so you're not gonna connect. And they're the guys are looking at actually changing it, so I'm not sure if you think this would be valuable or not, but one of the things they're realizing is a lot of times people use their thumb, right? This, you kind of have to do the circle, but they're thinking they should change it to a back and forth line. So we'll see. They're doing some voice of customer on that to figure it out. And then you've got your scheduling there, pretty easy. So pretty much anything you can do at the Envita, you can do on the app, with the exception of configuring your relays and configuring your equipment that's attached, right? And again, this is just home and away, pretty easy to set it back. So you can create multiple locations. So if you had the country house, the city house, the lake house, the ski house, right? And then up to 20 thermostats per each of those. So the first person who registers the thermostat is the account owner. And then you can email other people an invitation to your app, right? Now, the owner can also remove permissions. The one question I get asked a lot for this is, what if they sell the house, right? All you do is you deregister the thermostat. I'm in the house. I go over, I deregister it from their app, whoever they are, they're gone. I re-register it to my app. I'm off to the races, right? So yeah, I suppose if you had a buddy that was real savvy, he could kind of mess you around a bit, right? But you know, it's pretty secure because it's in your own home.
If someone forgets their username and password,
There's a username, forgot password. That's all built in.
What if they forget, like, all of that, even like where their email for their username is to? Is there a way to reset everything from like from the thermostat itself? Like, you can do that. Okay.
Yeah, you deregister the thermostat, and then you'd have to reconfigure your app. Like,
but
you just start over.
Can you deregister it without knowing someone's user information? Okay.
Yeah, you get physically into the app and down into the Wi-Fi settings and deregister it, and then it gives you a 30-minute window.
Yeah.
It sends the it gives you a code, and that's what we're doing here. So you select your Wi-Fi password, so you get the thermostat on your Wi-Fi with your password for your house, right? Your router. You download the app to your phone. You go back to the thermostat. You go into the settings, and you get a registration code. And you go to your app and you type in the registration code. You have 30 minutes to do that. So if you forgot everything, you would just deregister the thermostat. I would probably get rid of the app and download fresh, and you'd just start over.
Now, what if you were renting or leasing your property? Could you switch it over to whomever is going to be operating it?
Yeah, if it was my house, I would invite them to the account. Because I own that property, I want to own that account.
Oh.
And so I can invite them to the account, and they can go in and change temperatures and that. But if they move out, I can just remove their permissions, and they no longer have access to the thermostat. I can invite the next guy. Yeah, great question. So it does have Alexa and Google Home. This one's kind of fun. I worked on the user acceptance testing for it, you know, and I wouldn't have thought that I was kind of, I don't know, I don't like to fidget with stuff a bunch, right? But you actually feel kind of she, you know, it's like, oh, Alexa, turn up the kitchen. And, you know, and it bumps it up. Or you can say, turn it up 1 degree, turn it down 1 degree. If you mess up and you say, turn up the kitchen, but you didn't actually name it, you just called it home, right? It'll say, you know, I don't recognize that. But you can have it do the bedroom, the kitchen, you can name them all. So that's kind of funny. One of the guys at work has it configured, and so his wife always turns it up, and then he just waits until he knows she goes to her yoga class, and he turns it back down again on her. So yeah, that is the Envita. Any questions that perhaps weren't addressed during the presentation? You guys did a good job. So, I don't know if we have time to talk about the relay box or not. I know y'all got places to be. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, I'm just
I
stretching.
thought you were like,
Do you guys have any questions? You guys see the boilers more than the other stuff? Is that any of your concerns?
Yeah,
Mark?
our need for Tekmars is way more with boiler controls
okay.
than it is with and commercial boiler controls.
Okay, so multi-staging.
Steam, far more than hot water.
Good. Okay, so I'm working right now. I'm finishing my bachelor, and the one thing of technology management, I have to do a capstone, and my capstone project is actually on revamping our steam control. We only have one right now.
Right.
It's the 279. It's a single stage steam control. Works pretty good. You guys see it used mostly with the condensate return sensor.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
And are they setting up the steam established, or are they kind of
Yeah.
like meh?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I mean, if you don't, and if you know this is good. It'll go quick. I'll see lots of nods, and I won't expand on it. But what people don't understand about the 279 is that it actually has 4 stages to a steam cycle. The first stage is steam established. So what it does is it wants to charge the building with steam, and it looks at the condensate return, and it judges, okay, I've done it by, let's say that's 150 degrees, right? The way you set that steam established is you get somebody to go to the farthest point. You're down in the mechanical room. You run steam in. When the farthest point has steam, they should phone you or radio you and say, yeah, I got steam. You look on the 279 and see what temperature the condensate return is. That's your steam established setting. So once the building is charged, and you can tell by the condensate return temperature, then the heat on portion starts. So that's the second stage. There's heat off portion. That's the third stage. And then the fourth stage is kind of a cool down. And what it does is it wants to watch the condensate return drop below that steam established. Okay, I'm getting good. I'm getting lots of nods. So those 4 stages make up your steam cycle. If you set your steam established, the default is 180. People phone me and they're like, oh, this thing's crazy. My building's overheating. You guys don't know what you're doing. Well, the steam established is 180. So they way overheat the building before the control even knows it's ready to start its heat on cycle, right? The other thing that people do is then they make their on and off cycle. It shouldn't be more than 60 minutes. That's where I generally find it works best, because if you, let's say you make your cycle, your on off cycle 30 minutes, you've just now given yourself double the steam established every hour, right? So you may be putting way too much steam into that building on a regular basis.
Usually set the cycle time at about between 50 and 60 minutes on those steam
Yep,
controllers.
and that's good. So if you have signed in, and if you haven't, I do encourage you to, and leave your email address, because I'm going to send a survey out, going out to the market just to say, look, what would you like to see in a steam control? And we're actively looking to revamp that control and get it out in 2020 or early 21. So if there's stuff you'd like to see, Wi-Fi, wireless sensors, color, I don't know, right? So we really want to go back out to the market and say, what do you need? What's the pain point out there? Because we're not installing them, we're not dealing with them, right? So we need to know. Yeah. But yeah, as far as boiler controls, the 279 is our only steam control at this juncture. For multi-stage, there's the 275 and the 274. So those are 4-stage on-off. 275 is modulating. And can I get on the Wi-Fi here? I can get to
It's
Now, when you say modulating, can that be used to run a boiler with a power burner that has a modulating power burner on it?
Yeah, so Tekmar actually always wants, that's a firing rate control, right? We always think we're running the firing rate. We're running the burner. We do have a couple controls that have a Wiesmann signal built in, and that's a target temperature. But generally, we expect to be in control of the firing rate, the burner, right?
Because I ran across, this is about 3 years ago, maybe 4 now. We put a boiler in an apartment building, had a modulating burner, and the boiler that was in there before had the same setup. We had a Tekmar that had the 275 or whatever the earlier version of that was, that would modulate the burner based on reset. We put the new burner in with the new boiler, and the Tekmar couldn't communicate with the new burner.
Oh. Was it firing target
which
temperature,
one?
the new boiler?
That was
Power burner.
Marsal.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
what signal did it, go 0 to 10? Or
Well,
4
I
to
mean,
20?
I went through everything. I even ended up talking to the boiler manufacturer, the burner manufacturer, I should say.
Right.
And
Power flame.
they told me that they were having trouble with their controls, and that they couldn't communicate with the Tekmar. They told me to put a Honeywell controller in. So we ended up swapping it out, putting Honeywell controller in there, and it still didn't work.
Right. I was going to say, we're having a trouble with our burner, so use a different manufacturer. Right? No, all day long is firing rate. If you're seeing lots of multi-staging, we do have a 284, which if you're, it's got the ability to do BACnet and Modbus. So if you're coming into a building that already has an automation system, the nice thing about using the 284 is, and automation, that was what I took at school, right? And the funny thing about automation techs is nobody trusts anybody else's programming, right? So since 1992, I've heard the same mantra from automation, which is we should have standard libraries, pump lead lag sequence. You don't have to rewrite that nobody should be recreating the wheel. None of the guys use the other guys' programs, right? But the beautiful thing about something like the 284 is it's a boiler control in a box. So you take it out, you set it on the wall, you configure it. They're designed for 8 to 10 standard applications, right? These are not custom, but for you got 4 boilers, you want to do some pump lead lag, you need outdoor reset, you want set point or domestic hot water. You can have that all set up, and you're not having to pay a guy to recreate the wheel. Neither are you stuck having to go back to them if you do need any changes, right? Because these things are designed to just, you put them in, you configure them. So if you guys need, if you have particular Tekmar controls that you run across regularly here, or that you've applications you'd like to explore, you can definitely reach out to Kim, and we can tee up a time and do something like this where, you don't get to see my pretty face, but you can hear me over and we could use a WebEx and use some technology to get you some targeted training to kind of make a difference in your business, right? Yeah. The one really good thing, just briefly going back to the Envita is when you're looking at, I'm always trying to think, I come from a family business, so I'm always trying to think, how can I help my customers build their business, right? And the one thing is if you're going in somewhere where they've had a hot water tank or a leak or something like that, and you can offer them something that helps with the thought of that trauma, right? And at a good price point, that now instead of just having a hot water tank replacement, you can give them a little extra love, and they can come away with feeling a little more secure, right? And you're the solution provider for that.
Going back to that ring around the water sensor around is that expandable? I mean,
Yeah.
you can be used to go around a commercial water heater in like an apartment building.
I'm not sure off the top of my head like how big that is. I think I honestly don't know, but I can figure it out.
More tankless being used now too, so you might have.
Yeah, you might have to square it off against the wall depending, or you might have to, it depends on what the installation is, right? I do know it comes just in a roll, and it's got like the sticky rubber spot, and it sticks pretty good, so play with it a bit, know where you want to put it before you start,
Well, and the reason I'm asking is because we just put, I think it was Thursday of last week, we just put a water heater in an apartment building, and why they do this is unfathomable, but they put the water heater on the 3rd floor, and there's no elevator, and the commercial water heaters weigh about 700 or 800 pounds.
Yeah.
And you've got to get them up there. We had a stair climber and 4 guys, and we busted our butt to get it up there. But
Arbor Court.
right, but what I'm saying is this might be a sell for them, because when that water heater went, it took out the ceiling.
Yeah.
in the hallway
The
below.
water damage is so expensive
Yeah.
too, right?
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention they have the washer and dryers in the same room.
Yeah, Kim, if you're kind enough,
Right.
make a note and we'll definitely get that back to you. I wouldn't want to guess on the size of it and then be
Right.
wrong, right? You get out there and you're like,
yeah. Right.
but I wouldn't imagine, or I could imagine, like you should be able to get a second one should you need, right? Like how big does it have to be?
Well, yeah. Are they expandable? I
Yeah,
guess you know.
yeah. That's
Because
the question.
most commercial water heaters are about 30 to 32 inches in diameter. So I mean, if you can get one that was like 36 or 38,
I
could
want
go
to say they
36
give
inch
you
in
5
diameter.
feet in there, but like I said, I'm not a gambling gal, so
You
I'll
may not
get
have that much room to play with though. Those rooms are pretty small. You'd be stepping over it and ripping it probably too though.
Yeah,
They don't have to-
some of
you
those
would
are pretty
definitely
tight.
have to
I agree.
see whether it would, how it would fit.
Mhm. Yeah, no, good question. I'll track that down for sure. I want to say 5 feet, but I don't want to steer you wrong, so we'll look it up and I'll get back to you.
Somebody had a question, I don't remember who it was, about exhaust fans and how many
Yeah.
exhaust fans can be.
How many?
Yeah,
So this is got an output for one fan. I mean, if you
no,
had a
I have a large garage with multiple exhaust fans. I put a Tekmar control on this boiler. He absolutely loves it. And he wants to know if there's anything we can do with his exhaust.
and is he wanting to exhaust to lower the temperature in the space, or is he wanting to ventilate?
Well, he wants to ventilate, to come on at 2 set points during the day. And then he has
Control.
propane sensors that tie into an alarm, so if they would trip, he would need that exhaust fans to come on as well.
Yeah, I don't know I mean, the Envita would take the trip alert and email it. But you can't program the trip to make the fan come on. You could program the ventilation. So you'd need an external relay so that if it tripped, the relay made and brought on those fans, and then when you reset it, you could break the relay, and the Envita at least could take the input and email the alert. Now, right now, that alert is canned, right? So it'll say you've got a leak detection. So, but he'd know that it was his water. But at the price point that the Envita is operating at, that might be a viable solution to him. But I don't have something particular to that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't they usually do that with carbon monoxide sensors in the garage?
Yeah, well, they switched a lot of their buses over to propane.
Oh, okay.
So
But it is
that's why he wants them to come on at a certain time when all the buses start up, the leak or come in.
Right.
Why the propane doesn't trip the carbon monoxide sensors?
it's a different sensing element.
That I'm not sure.
No, I used to, when I worked for Siemens, I used to do a lot of the swap outs for CO sensors, and they're different. It's a different electrochemical sensing element inside them for propane or for CO, right? The
No, but
ones,
I mean, wouldn't the buses put out CO even if they're running on propane?
I think there would be different levels of it, right? So what you're, and I think, well, I know there would be different levels of it because we used to have propane sensors as well.
I mean, a commercial CO detector should come on at about, what, 25 parts per million, right, for a garage?
Yeah, and
Typically.
they're customizable a bit, but I know that we had different ones because we had an arena, and so at some places in the arena we had CO, but then they had a Zamboni or some big piece
Right.
of equipment, and we had to have a different sensor
Oh,
in
okay.
there for that equipment, right?
I guess it makes sense, cause the Bacharach does have different settings for different fuels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have different profile, and you know what? When that stuff is life safety, you know, you want be a little particular about it, right? It's odd to me though because the sensors that we used to work with, I mean, there's different brands out there, but they actually had an integral relay alert output. So he could, if his had that built in, I don't know the type he has, it could automatically, he could hook up to that, and it could automatically bring on his exhaust. So there's a way we could accomplish what he wants, but it's not necessarily off the shelf.
Right. Oh, the main thing is he wants to kick them on at like 4 in the morning and the buses are.
Well, the ventilation would do that, right? The schedule would do that for him. So he can get the alert he wants, he can get the scheduled event he wants, but when he has that alert, he would need a relay interlock
Right.
to bring it all on.
Right.
But it would be doable. And then when you reset your alert, you would drop out that relay interlock and you'd be back to your regularly scheduled viewing event.
Okay.
No, great question. So yeah, please do, thank you very much for your time. If there's more particular on different boiler controls or exact controls, you've got different applications